Kids are noisy, and they must be stopped. I know I'm not alone in this, despite my lack of them. I can see others around me struggling to solve this critical issue. They feed them, water them, and even provide them with digital pacifiers, cell phones, tablets, and computers. Oh my. But is all this entertainment part of the solution, or have we just sprinkled Miracle-Gro on a problem and left it under the watch of a social media hydroponic grow light for the last 20 years? Well, everyone, the results are in. And we have created a monster, Gen Z. However, lucky for you, Dr. Jonathan Haidt, author of The Anxious Generation, and I have found a solution to silence these monsters and prevent them from growing back. By the end of this book review, we will have solved this problem and ensured a quieter, less distracting future. Lastly, we will highlight a growing issue, I believe, that was overlooked in this book. All right, time to get readical. Haidt hits the road running, suggesting a great rewiring of childhood occurred between 2010 and 2015, grounding his argument firmly in empirical data, noting that anxiety rates increased 134%, depression 106%, ADHD 72%, bipolar disorder 57%, and anorexia 100%, all since 2010. Even more alarmingly, according to the CDC, National Center for Injury Prevention and Control, suicide has increased 91% for boys and 167% for girls ages 10 through 14. When I heard this, I paused, taken aback, and took a moment to reflect on my own ADHD diagnosis, thinking to myself, at least I'm not the only one. This epidemic, he suggests, is due to two significant lifestyle changes that are contrary to our human nature. For one, a shift in parenting styles. For example, beating those needy devils is no longer acceptable. Sorry, parents, although neither I nor the author promotes bringing it back, so to speak, there is something we can take from it. We learn from mistakes. Experiencing pain teaches us how to avoid it. However, we have removed the lessons learned in childhood and become a culture of helicopter parents. We have become overly protective of our children in the real world and in turn have left them with few options in the virtual world. And two, a phone-based childhood, where 1 out of every 4 teens claims they are almost constantly online, and by 2022, that number had nearly doubled to 46%. This perversion of nature, namely the transition from a play-based childhood to a phone-based one, has had significant impact on childhood development. The author notes, quote, 4 foundational harms: sleep deprivation, social deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. Let's get into it. Sleep deprivation. We've all binged a Netflix show or doom scrolled to the late hours. Haidt emphasizes the causal relationship between social media use and sleep deprivation. This is because lack of sleep affects all our daily behavior, particularly our performance in school and personal relationships. Just imagine being hangry and sleep deprived at the same time. It's dangerous territory. Next up, social deprivation. The introduction of social media has rewritten the rules of social interaction, particularly affecting Gen Z's ability to function normally in society, I would say. When we first meet an individual, there are cultural rituals we must observe. For example, a hello, nice to meet you, followed by a handshake. Subtle cues are communicated, such as the pressure of the grip during the shake. To some, this pressure, particularly among males, conveys strength, authority, and respect. These types of rituals are seen throughout cultures. For example, the degree of the bow in Japanese culture is symbolic of respect for the other. Cultures are complex, and others value different things. In addition, many things co-occur in an interaction, which is synchronous and requires turn-taking. For example, waiting for one's turn to speak. Haidt lays out 4 features of how these interactions differ in contrast to the real world. A. They are disembodied. In other words, no physical body is needed to communicate. Think of a text. It's just a text. B. They are asynchronous. No clear turn-taking procedures. Although video calls have attempted to solve this, you can see the effects when communication doesn't line up. For example, during a video call when lag exists. The problem and the effect become apparent. C. Often communication is either one way or streamed to many. For example, a streamer or an individual posting a video. This is a field of research in its own right, parasocial relationships. D. There is a low bar for community entry, and they are often very short. Most communities have expectations for entry and require you to maintain relationships. This is in contrast to online communities where you can answer a few questions to comply and click accept. You're in. But you break a rule once and suddenly you're blocked. You evaporate into the ether like those relationships that never existed at all. So, why does this all matter? If you don't learn these rituals and societal expectations, you are simply at a significant disadvantage. If you don't learn to shake that hand or bow at first meeting, you'll be seen as disrespectful or weak and face ostracization, expulsion from the group. You learn how to manage relationship. As Haidt notes, the key factor is the commitment required to make relationships work. When people are raised in a community that they cannot easily escape, they do what our ancestors have done for millions of years. They learn how to manage relationships and how to manage themselves and their emotions to keep those precious things going. Back to it. Attention fragmentation. According to Statista, Gen Z mobile users were receiving an average of 192 alerts per day. The consistent notifications received by our phones are astronomical. Here, the author foreshadows a suggested solution. Today, classroom etiquette requires the putting away and silencing of our cell phones. We comply, to a certain extent. How often do we sneak a peek at that screen during a class or meeting? This behavior points out an integral flaw in our current standards, particularly in schools. Ward et al. Tested whether the proximity of a phone, for example on a desk, in a bag, or outside the room, reduced student performance and working memory capacity. The results demonstrated that the further the distance, the better the performance. Therefore, it is necessary that schools no longer require the putting away of one's phone, but instead that they be placed in a designated phone locker upon arrival at the educational institution. The need to check the phone to get just one more flip in and click that notification ties into a unique aspect of mobile applications, particularly social media applications. They are designed to addict us. However, unlike a physical chemical dependence, this is a behavioral addiction linked to a dopamine response. This is known as the hooked model. The model operates off an external trigger, such as a notification. Following an action, for example, taking a photo and posting it on your timeline. A variable reward, the number of likes, comments, or views. Lastly, an investment, for example, includes collecting rewards, badges, pets, filling out a profile, and networking. Once you are hooked, your use is guaranteed. You begin to check without the need of an external trigger to get in one last flip. But like all addictions, there is a cost, and Haidt argues it's a spiritual one. Moving into spiritual elevation and degradation, social media use is often related to selfish endeavors. One could argue that despite altruistic intentions, that hope to go viral, to be revered in society either by one's beauty or perhaps intelligence, one must consider not only the effect on the individual, but also on society. Haidt claims there are three dimensions of social space. The y-axis, hierarchy, is your social status. The x-axis, closeness, is the degree to which you feel close to or apart from others. And lastly, the z-axis, divinity, represents the ratio of, I would say, negative selfish actions to positive actions, altruistic. Haidt suggests that the phone-based life directly counteracts 6 spiritual practices that affect our position on the divinity scale, and therefore our position in this social space. These spiritual practices are shared sacredness. The author points out the idea of collective effervescence, a keynote of sociology that can be observed from the family unit to the town to the state, country, and beyond. However, with a twist, he notes that the strongest communities gather together for something that lifts people up. We experience this with holidays, a communal activity that sets aside time to revere. A remarkable fact, the Hebrew word for holiness, kadosh, literally means set apart or separated. Now consider the contrast to our daily lives, the constant notifications and distractions. Next, embodiment. A common practice amongst religions is rituals, shared physical movements and practices that engage the physical body. Think of a communal prayer and ceremonies. Third, stillness, silence, and focus. Meditation is a common practice in many cultures and is valued a great deal, and this is reflected in modern-day science. According to the NIH, mental health is another aspect influenced by meditation, as positive emotion brought about by meditation helps address various mental problems like social anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. However, our technology counters this practice in daily life. Fourth, transcending the self. A social media platform distilled to the level of a profile is synonymous with a brand. You release posts that reflect you and affect how others perceive you. The issue, however, is that we neglect to connect with something greater than ourselves, our community, our family, and our surroundings. Haidt cites a foundational Taoist text from the 4th century BCE to describe this. Bedevilments arising in the mind are ideas of self and others, ideas of glory and ignominy, ideas of gain and loss, ideas of right and wrong, ideas of profit and honor, ideas of superiority. These are the dust on the pedestals of the spirit, preventing freedom. 5. Be slow to anger and quick to forgive. The internet is reactionary, and the algorithm often promotes the absurd over the reasonable. Instant condemnation, shaming, and trolling are at times favored over understanding. Harassment is common. Lastly, find awe in nature. Haidt puts it best. Awe is triggered by two simultaneous perceptions. First, that what you are looking at is vast in some way, and second, that you can't fit it into your existing mental structure. That combination seems to evoke a sense of being small in a profoundly pleasurable, although sometimes also fearful, way in people. Awe opens us to changing our beliefs, allegiances, and behaviors. Now, the solution. The following measures should be taken. Assert a duty of care. The UK recently enacted the Age Appropriate Design Code, AADC, for online companies that provide digital services. These design codes require specific safety measures to be taken. Currently, when you log in and create an account, many of the account settings are set to standard, but these design standards are the same for children as they are for adults. The AADC enforces a new standard. For example, geolocation for children is not shared, and posts are not made public. Also, we should raise the age of internet adulthood to 16. In 1998, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA, was enacted. This legislation provides regulations between the operator of a website and subsequent businesses, for example, Facebook and Instagram, that provide services for collecting information from children under 13 years of age. Haidt suggests that the age should be raised to 16 as children are more mature and capable of making better decisions. Moreover, facilitate age verification. We've all seen it, a pop-up or page asking you to input your age. Don't worry, I won't ask which one. But the problem with such systems is that they can easily be deceived. You can just lie and input whatever you like. This system needs reform, and I must give credit where credit is due. According to YouTube's official blog, the platform is currently working on implementing a new AI-driven age verification model based on signals, such as the types of videos you watch and playlists. These signals will estimate your age. If you fail, you must provide evidence of your age via a state-issued license or other means. Although this is progress, federal regulation may be required. And finally, we should encourage phone-free schools and encourage a play-based childhood. Now, the good stuff. Some constructive criticism. The book misses a critical topic. However, one can argue that it is entirely a separate topic. The rise of the incel community. For those unfamiliar, incels are males primarily who claim they are involuntarily celibate. These self-proclaimed social outcasts are known to create highly toxic spaces, particularly online, with a deep resentment towards females. This may be due to a multitude of factors. However, I believe it's safe to assert that this is due to media influence, as those noted as representatives of their persecution are primarily referred to as chads. These chads are described as a stereotypical attractive male whom women are only pursuing. I suggest this is due to social comparison. Men are comparing themselves to what they constantly see. They do not fit this mold and, as a result, don't think they can get this girl. In conjunction, women are continually seeing these chads with women and therefore have increased their social standards when pursuing males. To put this bluntly, if we were to rate men and women on a numerical scale, both sexes consistently pursue people who are out of their league. Linked to the incel outrage, this phone-based lifestyle that we have has stripped people of the ability to face rejection, increasing that resentment. And lastly, this social movement has emerged within the specified time frame. Further research is definitely needed on this topic. I truly enjoyed this book. It provided me with valuable insights into my own behavior despite its focus on Gen Z. Much of this information applies to us all. It also considered the effect of technology on a broad scale, which is important. A significant contributor to the Great Divide, I believe, in our culture, is that a large group of people raised on different principles were thrust into the real world without the skills of prior and subsequent generations. This struggle has led them to try to force the will of the majority to conform to their needs, a safe space. This space has created a rift in the fabric of society where divide may form and social fracture appear. We thought we were giving kids a safe space. What we may have done is carve a fracture into society itself. And if we don't fix it, that fracture only grows. If you'd like to purchase this book, see the description and sign up for our ToSpeakOnline.com newsletter. Additionally, if you enjoyed this, you can show your support at ToSpeakOnline.com for as little as $3 per month. Visit ToSpeakOnline.com for articles and more. Stay readable.